Ch.50 Adroit dice for the safety of only 1-3. Generally, people would not know what their own backs looked like, but Lian was different. He was more than familiar with how his own back looked.
When the kingdom of Xianlei first fell, to relieve themselves of anger, the people burnt down his Baqian
Taoizi temple. 38. Desecrated all of his statues, robbed the gems on his sword and cleaned his attire of gold.
Yet after all that, the rage continued to burn, and so they came up with a new idea. It was to build such
kneeling statues. The crown prince that was highly venerated and worshipped was sculpted into the form of one who knelt and begged for forgiveness, and placed in crowded areas of town so everyone was free to spit at or kick it when they passed by, and rid themselves of misfortune.
Or worse, some even had him sculpted to be
prostrating, and used the statue directly as a threshold, allowing tens of thousands to walk all over it. In the first 10-20 years after the kingdom of Xianlei fell, those statues were a common sight in many of the cities and towns, so how could Lian himself not recognize his own back? Just then, the voice of a young man said, "That little hyena Pei Su had to hug the bitch legs of that Manhor Pei before he could ascend, so who does he think he is? He's nothing more than an exiled wild dog. To ruin my plans, once I'm through with him, even after the winds dry up his corpse, no one would dare go to collect it." Before the person himself had appeared, cussing was already heard. Lian gazed over, and saw a figure clad in green float into the cave. Due to a reason somehow not worth mentioning, Lian couldn't help
but look to the top of his head first, and was actually kind of disappointed to see that person had only a
mask on, and no light above his head. A bunch of little ghosts dressed in green surrounded this green-clad man, and he stood as if he was surrounded by a circle of green light. This must be one of the 4 calamities in the ghost realm, the green ghost Qi-Rong. Ever since Nan Feng had first mentioned the name Qi-Rong, Lian had kept it in the back of his mind, and wondered if this Qi-Rong was the same Qi-Rong he knew. However, there was an unwritten rule that, no matter if one was a demon or ghost, they would all hide their real names, and bury their past lives. Because of this, he didn't think they were the same person, only that the fake name had coincided with the real one.
Yet from the looks of things, he was more than certain.
If it wasn't that Qi-Rong he
knew, how could there be another Qi-Rong who was obsessed with the statue of the kneeling crown
prince? And why would the sound of his voice be so familiar? The little green ghosts that surrounded Qi-Rong were loudly acclaiming him king and wildly chatted, so Lian somewhat figured out what had transpired. Turns out when Qi-Rong sent a few of his henchmen to the ghost city, they failed in causing havoc, and was decimated by Hua Cheng. He then regrouped and
was ready to fight again.
But before the second round had even started, the henchman bumped into the
exiled Pei Su on the road.
Although exiled in the mortal realm, Pei Su nevertheless was once a heavenly official, and had nothing better to do, so when the henchman bumped into him, he thought he might as well clean him up, and so they were once again decimated. To lose so many henchmen in a short period of time, the moment Qi-Rong received the news he was furious, and cursed non-stop. Like ancestors like descendants, that fucking Manhor Pei Ming probably has sores all over his crotch. I should chop off both his and Pei Su's fucking dicks and hang 'em at their temples, and whoever worships them will bleed pus with every step. Si Lian had to really suppress the urge to cover his ears. The profanities were the same. When Feng Xin got upset, his curses were also too vulgar for ears, but as much as he swore, it was obvious that they were only words of temporary anger, and there was no real malintent. Qi Rong's curses were different. The recipients had no doubt that he truly wanted to curse them to die as crudely as the way he condemned. And he was wholly unafraid to take cheap shots, thoroughly crass and obscene. That group of little green ghosts agreed with Qi Rong loudly. He probably remembered the able subordinates he worked so hard to raise, and continued. Too bad that strong-spirited woman Xuanji was captured by those two shameless pay dogs and was wronged so miserably. She couldn't be saved even now. Si Lian couldn't agree with those words. Indeed, Xuanji had a tragic story, but not everything was General Pei's fault like Qi Rong had described. After all, those 10 brides were kidnapped by her very person, and she was the one who killed them in cold blood. Strong-spirited for sure, but whether or not she was a good woman was debatable. But to say Little Pei only ascended because he begged General Pei was something Si Lian couldn't agree with. After seeing so many ascend and descend, there was one thing Si Lian could say with absolute certainty: the skilled may not always ascend, but the ascended are always skilled. If one is powerless, no matter who promoted them, they would not be able to overcome heavenly calamities, and could only at most be an official in the middle court. Si Lian hadn't interacted much with Pei Su, but even he could see that Little Pei's martial power was above that of Lang Qianchu. Only, power didn't equal rank, there were politics at play too, otherwise Pei Su would have long since have
gotten his own palace.
Obviously, those things weren't of consideration to Qi Rong. He swore like there wasn't a single one in all of the realms he didn't want cursed to death. He called Pei Ming a manwhore, Little Pei a leg-hugging dog, Jun Wu a faker, Ling Wen a bitch, Lang Qianchu a moron, Quan Yizhen shit, the water master black-hearted, the wind master a slutty woman. He probably didn't know Shi Qingxuan was actually a man. If Si Lian hadn't seen it for himself, he wouldn't be able to believe anyone could be so resentful. Finally, Qi Rong made it to the main point, which was how Hua Cheng and that Loki ship sinking Blackwater looked down on him. They were mere supremes, one day for sure he'd have them kneel before him. Si Lian should be angry hearing this, but because he couldn't even imagine how that would ever play out, he couldn't help but find it hilarious instead, and stole a glimpse at Hua Cheng. Hua Cheng himself didn't have any reaction, but instead was still closely staring at that kneeling stone statue. Finally, thankfully, Qi Rong seemed to be assuaged by all the cursing, and changed the subject. How was the thing I sent you guys to do? Have Quan Yizhen and that manwhore Pei started fighting yet? He sat down as he spoke, lounging on his luxurious throne. He raised his legs and rested his boots on the shoulders of that statue, using it as a footstool. Si Lian had been holding on to Hua Cheng's arm, and stopped him immediately when he felt him shuffle a step forward. He felt the pull back may not be enough, so he drew another word in Hua Cheng's palm. Thanks. Hua Cheng recognized the word. He lowered his head, then glanced at Si Lian, who was watching him with gratefulness in his eyes, thanking him for his good intentions. Then, Si Lian shook his head lightly and drew the words, "listen," and "heaven." Qi Rong was talking as if he sent henchmen to do something, and it had something to do with those two
heavenly officials.
It couldn't be anything good, so Si Lian wanted to keep listening. As for the statue, getting used as a footstool, thinking back, it had even been used as a threshold before, so really it meant nothing to Si Lian. It was only a piece of rock, not his person. Although he had only written those 3 simple words, when their eyes met, Si Lian knew Hua Cheng had understood what he had meant. Hua Cheng slowly held his hand tight and turned his head away, so Si Lian could no longer see his expression. A little green ghost spoke up. "We followed our king's instructions, and have long since spread the rumors that Pei Ming wants to make Pei Su the martial god of the West. Now it's becoming more and more of a riot, so we used that as an excuse and desecrated hundreds of Ming Guang temples disguised as Qi Ying Palace's devotees, and no one was the wiser. Ha ha ha, my lord may not know, but those devotees are really stupid. They saw us smashing temples, and smashed along with us with even more enthusiasm. Qi Rong was pleased. Keep fueling them. Quan Yizhen can endure it, but I won't believe that Manhor Pei Ming can put up with it. Even if what they were spreading wasn't exactly a rumor, this kind of fabrication was still full of malintent, especially something as unscrupulous as disguising themselves as mortals to sabotage temples. Absolutely heinous, depraved, and perverse. No wonder that whenever Qi Rong was mentioned, everyone in the heavens would say he wasn't skilled, but was extremely troublesome. Si Lian mentally noted, if there's a chance, do tell Jun Wu to watch for any disputes between 2 heavenly officials caused by others. When Qi Rong finished with business, he laid back, his pair of long legs resting on the statue changed position. The little ghosts immediately knew what to do, and went to the small crowd of people to pick out the best cut. The one child in the group was probably not even 10 years of age, and wasn't very cognizant of the situation. He blinked his large eyes and held on tight to his father's shirt corner, yanking at it the more scared he became. His young father's face was ashen pale, trying to comfort him with a trembling voice, "Don't be scared, don't be scared." Yet it was obvious he himself was terrified to the bone. One of the little green ghosts saw there was a child and was delighted, extending its arm to grab at him. The young father screamed and jolted. Si Lian moved before he knew what he was going to do, but then he felt movement from the figure next to him. Si Lian turned his head to see, and Hua Cheng had stepped out from within the crowd. Since Hua Cheng came especially to seek out the green ghost, now that he'd seen Qi Rong he should have removed the disguise. Si Lian had no doubt that Hua Cheng was powerful enough to destroy everything within sight, and no one would be able to stop him. Yet Hua Cheng did not reveal his true form, and maintained the skin of that normal-looking young man, and walked forward lazily. A number of little green ghosts raised their weapons and shouted in alarm, "Stop! What are you doing?" Exclamation mark. Qi Rong asked curiously, with his feet still up, "What's with that little guy? Take him down." Hua Cheng laughed. Won't you all show a little respect in the presence of Xianlei royalty? Hearing his words, not only Qi Rong, but even Si Lian was taken aback. After a frozen moment, Qi Rong stood up in a fit, snorted beneath the mask, as if his fury was changed to a mad laugh. What fucking bravery! To make such a joke before me! Exclamation mark. Tell me, and what branch of the Xianlei royal blood are you from? Which one? Hua Cheng replied leisurely, the Prince Enla. Si Lian could feel the Lang Qianchu Daruma doll in his arms jerk once.
Prince Enla was a descendant of Xianlei royalty from the same generation as Lang Qianchu, and could be
said to be friends with Lang Qianchu. Qi Rong's mocking laugh could be heard from under the mask. Prince Enla. I think you're seeking your own death. Who told you to start shit in front of me? The person who appointed you didn't teach you a
little history.
Prince Enla was the last remaining royal blood of Xianlei, and he's already dead. Who the fuck are you to pretend to be Xianlei royalty before me? Hua Cheng raised his brow. Oh.
Dead.
How did he die? Qi Rong shouted, take him down. Take down that odd piece of shit.
Under his command, a large number of little green ghosts poured in from all around the cave, yelling.
In the midst of that chaos, Hua Cheng only smirked faintly. His expression was nonchalant before, but the next moment it was as if a layer of frost had been laid upon his face. His form suddenly flickered and disappeared, appearing the next blink behind Qi Rong. He single-handedly grabbed the back of Qi Rong's head, and smashed it down hard like a child playing with a ball. And who the fuck are you, to be so insolent before me? A loud bang and that luxurious throne suddenly had debris flying, dust filled the air. Si Lian pulled the
child behind himself to shield him, and blocked a few small pebbles.
When the dust settled, Qi Rong had disappeared. At a closer look, he hadn't disappeared, rather, his entire head was deeply embedded into the ground after Hua Cheng's blow. Humans and ghosts alike screamed and ran away. Don't run away! Si Lian shouted. If the people alerted all the ghosts within the cave, they'd be killed for sure. But of course, as always, no one listened to him. Si Lian dropped his hands helplessly. Under the circumstances, he had no time to worry about others, either. Across the room, Hua Cheng slowly knelt down. He used one hand to grab a fistful of Qi Rong's hair, and pulled out a bloodied head. From the hole in the ground, the body was pulled out along with the head. After a brief moment of observation, Hua Cheng seemed to be extremely amused, and burst out laughing. Although he was laughing, his eyes were off by 1,000,000 watts, eerie and terrifying. Roy flew out and struck away a few of the little green ghosts who were trying to cut down the escaping people. Si Lian then turned around in a rush, his instincts telling him something was very wrong. San Lang! San Lang! Qi Rong's mask cracked, some pieces falling.
He threw up a mouthful of blood and yelled, somebody!
Stop him! Yell, come and stop him! Exclamation mark.
Hua Cheng was just violently bashing him, but now he seemed to be at ease, as if they were best buddies.
And chatting. He chuckled. Oh, didn't you know? There are some things in this world that are unstoppable. Like the sun setting in the west. Also, an elephant squashing an ant. Or, for example, me taking your lowly life. By his last line, his face was savage and ferocious. He had in his hold Chi-Rong's whole body, and he bashed it down into the ground again. Another loud bang. Chi-Rong's body laid embedded in the ground and was smushed into a pool worse than mush. The mask on his face cracked, breaking into small pieces, revealing half a face.
If anyone were to see that half a face, they'd discover a shocking fact.
The green ghost Chi-Rong and the crown prince of Xianlei, one ghost, one god, a difference of hell and heaven, looked very much alike. 38 Bakian Taizi Temple translates to Temple of 8,000 Crowned Princes. Next chapter. Ch.51 Truth or deception, difficult to discern. Yet when the other half of the mask fell and Chi-Rong's entire face was revealed, it became obvious that he
didn't look that much like Si Lian after all. Their noses, lips, and the contours of their lower jaws were
similar in shape, but their brows and eyes were quite different. Si Lian's eyes were calm and peaceful. Chi-Rong's brows were high and sharp, his eyes were also much more thin and slanted. He was certainly still a good-looking young man, but anyone could see just from his face that he wasn't one to be messed with. After having been beaten to a bloody pulp, he could finally squint open his eyes, and blearily noticed the one grabbing him had changed form into a youth dressed in red. Chi-Rong had never seen Hua Cheng's real face, but the moment he saw the red robes he was shocked and furious. It's you. It's you. Hua Cheng had changed back to this true form. You haven't answered my question. How did Prince Le die? Because of how frightening his eyes looked, Si Lian rushed forward and cried, San Lang. Humans and ghosts alike had all already cleared the cave, and Si Lian ran to his side. Are you all right? Don't be angry, please don't be angry, everything's fine. Just calm down, everything's fine. He gently rubbed Hua Cheng's shoulders a few times, and his voice became soothingly soft. When Si Lian was younger, whenever he got angry or upset, his parents would always stroke his back like this, and comfort him with the gentle voices. Thus, he used the same method on Hua Cheng. Turns out, it was quite effective. Hua Cheng's eyes were turbulent before, but after being soothed, his lips quivered for a second, and he slowly but finally calmed. His eyes cleared once more. Seeing this, Si Lian let out a breath of relief. But suddenly, even before he finished exhaling, Hua Cheng swiftly reached out a hand and gently patted his shoulder once. This pat instantly froze Si Lian's body and rooted him to where he stood. He hadn't prepared for Hua Cheng to do anything to him, which was why this was done so easily. He didn't know what Hua Cheng was up to, but he wasn't worried about himself, rather, he was worried for Hua Cheng, afraid that he might lose control again like earlier. He was about to open his mouth to ask, when he realized not only could he not move, he couldn't speak either, and felt he may have gotten into a rather difficult situation. That Chi-Rong might have been weak in fist fights, but his mouth was certainly tough, and he started cursing while still covered in blood. You fucking crazy one-eyed snake. Did I fucking piss you off while eating in my own fucking house? Exclamation mark. Hua Cheng smiled, then smacked his head down onto the ground again before picking it up. How did Prince Le die? What the fuck does that have to do with you? Chi-Rong cried, and Hua Cheng bashed him down again. How did Prince Le die?
This went on repeat for a while, and Hua Cheng kept his cool smile, dribbling Qi Rong's head like a ball,
violently bashing it over 10 times. Although it was violent, Qi Rong couldn't die, and because he couldn't die, it was insufferable. Even a skull made of steel couldn't stand this kind of torture, and Qi Rong finally changed his tune. If you're so free, why don't you go read a fucking history book? Hua Cheng laughed coldly. If history books recorded the truth, why would I come and ask useless trash like you? He lifted his hand again, and Qi Rong yelled, "It's Lang Qianqiu." He was killed by Lang Qianqiu! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! The Daruma doll in Si Lian's arms jerked, and started shaking vigorously. It was shaking too hard and Si Lian couldn't move to hold it down, so alas, he watched as the Lang Qianqiu Daruma doll fell out and onto the ground, madly spinning back and forth. Hua Cheng didn't turn his head, but he undid the spell. A blast of red smoke and Lang Qianqiu's form leapt from within. He was royalty, high and mighty, and had never been wronged like this his entire life. He pointed at Qi Rong in rage. How could you insult me like this and smear my name? Anla and I were friends. Who did you say killed him? Exclamation mark. Qi Rong was also shocked to see him jump out. You're Lang Qianqiu. Why the fuck are you here too? Exclamation mark. Lang Qianqiu himself didn't understand why he was brought to this lair either, but was simply enraged by Qi Rong's accusations earlier, and felt compelled to clear things up. Prince Anla died of illness, so why would you accuse me of killing him out of the blue? Exclamation mark. Hua Cheng looked on coldly, but stopped dribbling Qi Rong's head, so Qi Rong got pulled into the fight. Died of a fucking illness, only you would believe it. He died soon after the gilded banquet, so he must have been assassinated by you lot. If not you, then those old withering fucks in court. He was muddying the waters and spewing garbage. Lang Qianqiu's face was growing grimmer. No wonder everyone says the green ghost Qi Rong is vulgar and crass. Now that I've met you, you are indeed disgusting. His offhand comment stabbed Qi Rong exactly where it hurt. After becoming famous, for so many centuries, all of heaven and hell taunted him for being boorish and crude, and he hated it. His face dropped immediately. I may be vulgar, but it's still much better than your ignorance. Friends this, friends that, what peaceful relationship. Xianlei and Yonggan can be friends. Coexist in peace. You're as fake as your shitty parents. Disgusting. Hearing him insult his parents, Lang Qianqiu was furious. Shut up. My esteemed parents were sincere and genuine, not fake. I won't allow you to spit on the names. Qi Rong spat. You're all nothing more than the descendants of some rebels, who gave you the fucking right. Exclamation mark. What sincerity. To donate titles and land to us, the people of Xianlei. Shameless. You robbed what was ours, then handed it back out like it's some sort of a gift. Everything you owned had belonged to Xianlei. Lang Qianqiu was not skilled in arguing, and actually froze and stuttered. You. Qi Rong saw how he stammered and felt a rush of satisfaction, and resolved to aggravate him even more. He laughed. Even if you guys killed Anla, it was a profitable death. Xianlei lost but one man, but Yonggan paid an entire gilded banquet. Too bad we couldn't kill you too, and have you all taste what it's like to end an entire bloodline.
Hearing this, Lang Qianchu was bewildered.
What did you say? Si Lian mentally cursed. He so desperately wanted to bash Qi Rong back into the ground the same way Hua Cheng did, and shut him up. But with this petrification spell, he couldn't move a single muscle.
What do you mean you couldn't kill me too?
Qi Rong only wanted to avenge himself on the vulgar comment, and boasted. Truly the fruit doesn't fall
far from the tree. My lord's stupidity spans hundreds of years. My eyes are opened.
Think us Xianlei are thoroughly disgusted with you Yong'an. Whoever doesn't hate you is unfit to be called a citizen of Xianlei. Did you honestly think the royal descendants of Xianlei would be friendly with the royalty of Yong'an? It was all to infiltrate your guard, to make it easy to plot, and to wash your gilded birthday banquet with blood. Si Lian was struggling to break free, and Lang Qianchu was frozen to his spot. After a moment, he stammered, the Prince Enla and the Guoshi were on the same side. Lang Qianchu was filled with anguish, thinking that his beloved teacher and friend had conspired against him together. However, contrarily, Qi Rong said, Guoshi. That wicked Guoshi Fangxin.
Who the hell is on the same side
as him? Lang Qianchu heard his question and was baffled. You washed the gilded banquet with blood, but the one to do so, was it not the Guoshi? Were you both not on the same side? He was thoroughly confused. Who the fuck knows where that evil cultivator came from? Qi Rong replied. It had nothing to do with him. Listen up, Lang Qianchu, the blood spilt at your Yong'an gilded banquet was all done by the people of Xianlei. Enla had already planned to kill off every single fucking rebel at the banquet, but that fucking weirdo Guoshi of yours suddenly busted in. Enla had thought the plans failed and ran to me for help, asking me what to do if he was discovered, but you knew that very night it would be announced the one who fucked everything was that Guoshi, and he became a wanted man across the entire kingdom. It took Lang Qianchu a while to process that information. If that was the case, then why didn't you speak up? Qi Rong clicked his tongue. Are you fucking dumb? Why would I say anything? Was it a bad thing to have someone take the blame? Can you level me up to a supreme with this lie? He was relishing this more and more the more he spoke. I get it. You couldn't believe it, right? I heard you nailed your own teacher into a coffin. What a fucking idiot. You killed the wrong person. Hearing that vile, hearty laughter, Si Lian closed his eyes, and cursed again. Lang Qianchu was trembling with rage.
You're wrong.
He then whipped around and shouted towards Si Lian. If that was true, even if he didn't say anything, why didn't you? Exclamation mark. Qi Rong spat out a broken tooth. And who the fuck is that? What, are you all here to have a fucking party?
In my cave.
Everyone ignored him. Lang Qianchu demanded, if you didn't do it, if you didn't kill, then why did you admit to guilt? Just then, Si Lian's body became loose. Hua Cheng had undone the petrification spell. However, it might have been too late. Lang Qianchu was waiting for his response, and Si Lian stood up slowly, working out the kinks in his wrists and joints. After a pause, Si Lian blurted the words, complete nonsense. Lang Qianchu had fully expected him to say, "It's true," just as he said. Yet the words Si Lian uttered completely revoked his own relief of guilt from Qi Rong's recount. Qi Rong was pissed. "Complete nonsense! Exclamation mark. Says who? Says I," Si Lian said. He looked down on Qi Rong and said, "All this fibbing and these empty words, what proof do you have that the ones who spilled blood at the gilded banquet were the descendants of Xianlei?" Qi Rong was amused. "All the killed are dead, so what proof? Besides, it's been hundreds of years. What proof is left? Which is why I say this is all complete nonsense," Si Lian replied. Xianlei and Yonggan are dynasties of the past, long lost to time. Is there any point in you stirring up trouble with nothing more than bits of history? The tone of his voice startled Qi Rong, and he looked as if he was remembering something, narrowing his eyes. Si Lian turned to Lang Qianchu and said in a calming manner, "I killed your father, you saw with your own eyes. This was during a time soon after my second banishment. I was filled with frustration and caused a great wrong. This is all my fault. There's no need to drag anyone else down with me. This man is full of deception. Dragging the prince-in-law's name through mud was only to avenge himself of your comment on his vulgarity. If any bystander was to listen in on this conversation, they would find it hilarious. A fight for the title too. The true culprit of a murder case, one would think blood spilling at the gilded banquet was some sort of glorious deed." Lang Qianchu was in turmoil and profoundly confused. He held his head and thought for a long while. Before speaking, "That's right, it was you, and no one else." He had seen with his own eyes. That night, he ran to the gilded palace excitedly, only to see the black-clad Guoshi pull out a thin, long sword from the chest of his father, splattering blood everywhere. And at that moment, his father, the king of Yonggan, had stretched out his hand towards him, still breathing. It was after he had rushed over that hand was dropped limply. Just then, Qi Rong, who was lying on the ground, suddenly spoke up, "Cousin Crown Prince, is that you?"